Hello everyone, John Baker here, and in this video I want to share with you where I believe our family landed in America at by using the DNA test that my dad had taken through Ancestry.com. Now, if you're a family member of mine and you haven't learned this information yet, then hopefully this video will be informative to you. If you're not a family member of mine and you just stumbled across this video through some other means, then I would encourage you to stick around. Hopefully some of the information that I provide in this video, some of the tips and tricks that I used to figure this information out about our family, maybe you can use it in your own research to figure out where your family may have landed in America at. I don't know if you'll have quite as much luck as we did. We got pretty lucky with this, as you'll see. But hey, you know what? Even if there's just some of you out there that if you come across this and you find these tricks and it ends up helping you find out some really cool information about your own family, then I am very happy to help. Now, if you are like into this type of stuff and you haven't taken a DNA test yet, then I would encourage you to take one. Ancestry.com has a really a great one, or they got like a lot of great information they provide with theirs. It's very affordable. If you haven't done that yet, then I will provide a link in the description of the YouTube video below to where you can take the test. If you're watching this, like say I've put up a website for our family history and you're watching this from there, then I'll provide a link on that website as well. I don't know if it'll be like a link or a banner ad or something like that, but I'll definitely provide it on that also. Now, it'll almost certainly be an affiliate link, and so if you do find this video informative to you, or you're just interested in this subject and would like to do a DNA test, then please be sure to use that affiliate link that I provide. I would greatly appreciate it. But with that said, I'm going to jump right in. Okay, so family, you know in the last video that I had posted that we have some pretty solid information about our family history going back to about the American Revolution. And that's where we came into a standstill at, and we couldn't really figure out anything past it. And so when my dad had taken this DNA test, now he took this DNA test back in December of 2016. So you can see my name is up here, Jonathan Baker, and my dad is Charles. He went by Chuck, but nonetheless, though, he had taken this test. I purchased this DNA test for him for Christmas of that year. He had been battling for cancer for quite some time, and my dad had passed away in December of 2017. But he'd taken this test the year before, and after he took the test and we got the results back a little bit later, I remember initially the main thing that we looked at was this DNA story right here. Now, don't get me wrong, this DNA story has a lot of really cool information in it, but this is primarily what we focused on at the beginning. You know, it has the percentages of where you are probably from. You know, with our family, as you can tell, we're primarily England and Northwestern Europe, 62%. We have some Irish a little bit, Sweden, Denmark a little bit, Scotland, German, etc., but primarily from England. These percentages do change every now and then, like Ancestry, as they get more advanced and they get more up-to-date information, then they'll update these numbers. But nonetheless, though, even just the general information they provide is really cool. And then sometimes they come out with new stuff that they'll post on here for you, like this right here. It talks about like what percentage from each parent that he inherited each of the ones from. You know, it has DNA communities, and you can click on these links, and they give a lot of really cool information on there. And so that's really what, you know, we focused on when he had first taken the test. I do remember at that time looking a little bit at this DNA matches, but I couldn't really figure out at that time how to use it that much. So like I was primarily using these buttons here up top, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's definitely a way to use them, and they can provide a lot of great valuable information. I just didn't have any luck with it when I initially tried, and so I just kind of put it down, really just mainly focused on that DNA story that I looked at before. Well, last year, this was in around September, October timeframe of 2021. I have a lot of dead time at work between October 1st through October 14th. And so I'd gotten back on here, and one thing that I noticed, and I don't know how I really didn't notice this before, or maybe I did, I just didn't really ever use it, but I noticed this search function when I got back on. And I'm going to move my head over here just so we can see the bar on this side clear. But when you expand it out and it pulls up this here, this right here ended up being a gold mine worth of information. And I didn't even notice this when he first took the test. So what ends up happening, you'll see it says match name, it says surname and matches trees, and it says birth location and matches trees. And now what ends up happening is, like, say you put in a surname, like my surname's Baker, and say you put in a birth location. Like, we've got a lot of history in Sharp County, Arkansas. You know, there's a Baker Cemetery there, and we go back to at least my third great grandpa is buried at Sharp County, Arkansas. All my grandpas up till him are buried there. But nonetheless, if you hit search, what ends up happening, and you got to keep scrolling down with this. That's another thing, is you got to keep scrolling down until it shows the hourglass, or it'll just quit populating names. So do keep that in mind if you do this yourself. But what you'll notice is it'll populate a list of names. In this list of names here, they do not have to live in the place that you plugged in up here, and they do not have to have the last name that you plug in here. They can have any last name, and they can be living anywhere in the world, okay? The way that they show up in the search results is if anywhere in their matches trees, they have the last name that's plugged in here, and they have the birth location that's plugged in here. If this is showing up anywhere in their matches trees, then they'll show up on the list. Now, when I figured that out, I was thinking, okay, that's a very valuable piece of information to know, because that could, you know, help quite a bit when it comes to research, right? And so what I got in my mind is like, okay, you know, if you put in a last name, you put in a birth location, you're getting a bunch of hits there, then what that would indicate to me is either, number one, you got a longer history in that area, or number two, you just had, you know, more relatives come over to that area, whether at the same time or different times, but you just had more relatives congregate over to that particular location, right? But I thought, you know, it could be a valuable function to potentially find out, you know, where your deepest roots are located within America, okay? And for most people, you know, you're going to be, at least if you've got some relatively deep roots in America, you'd be landing across the East Coast and then heading out west at some point. And so that's what I did. I kind of got on here. You know, you look at a map of the U.S. and I'm thinking, you know, I know at least for our family, we've got some documentation that goes back to at least the American Revolution, but we didn't really have much past that. And so I thought, you know, well, I'll plug in with this search function some of these major ports, major cities along the East Coast that was around back then and even earlier than that, and see if we have any like big hits with them, something that could glean some information with our research, right? Now, I primarily did this by county. It's a lot easier to do it with counties than just cities. But like, you know, I did Suffolk County, Massachusetts, which is where Boston's at. I did Plymouth County, Massachusetts, you know, New York County, New York, Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Maryland. Now Baltimore is an independent city. We actually had more hits in Baltimore City itself than Baltimore County. But nonetheless, though, you know, I went across the line on these bigger cities, ports, etc. on the East Coast to see if, you know, I could find any information out with it. Now, I went ahead and let these things download because they do take a moment to download with each one. But I kind of, you know, went across the ones I just shared with you, and as you can tell, you know, we have Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania. We had some hits there. It wasn't that we didn't have any, but, you know, the bar's that long. Baltimore, Maryland. This, you know, obviously the bar got a lot shorter, so we had more hits there. The shorter the bar is, then the more hits that you have. But that'd be Baltimore, Maryland. I also searched Suffolk County, Massachusetts. As you can tell, the bar got a little bit shorter. You know, did Plymouth County, Massachusetts. The bar got a little bit shorter, about the same length. And then, obviously I did New York County, New York, which the bar, at least for the major areas, had the most hits in that. But obviously, too, New York County has a much, much larger population. I think the population for New York County is like close to 8.5 million, where Suffolk County, Massachusetts, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it was a little over 800,000. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Plymouth County, even less than that. And then, so, New York County, we had the most hits in, but obviously a lot larger population as well. So whenever I first noticed this, and I did just kind of those major ports, and I started doing other counties as well. I did a bunch of counties in New York, but this was pretty much by far the biggest one that we had hits on was New York County. But I did a bunch of counties along the East Coast, and at first I was thinking, this was going to be probably about it. New York County, maybe we landed in Massachusetts because the population was a lot less, but, maybe it was New York County. I didn't know. I knew from the letter that Charles Baker, my third great-grandpa's younger brother, had written that I'd shared in that last video. He mentioned New York, that my fifth and, well, he didn't say my fifth and sixth great-grandpa in the letter, but what would be my fifth and sixth great-grandpa, they were from New York, so this kind of fit that. So initially, this is kind of where I had left it at. Well, fast forward a little bit, well, not too long later, but I ended up getting back on here, and I remembered that he mentioned in this letter, here's that letter that Charles Almond Baker had written, but he mentioned in this letter a Hampton Roads, Virginia, okay? This is where he said they were stationed at in the wars. And I didn't know where Hampton Roads, Virginia was at, so I had to look that up, and it turns out that Hampton Roads is a body of water. Now, I don't know if it's this body of water right here or if it's this one right here, but nonetheless, though, it's a body of water that's right next to where Jamestown is located. Now, I thought that was pretty cool. And so, of course, I pull up a county map of Virginia all around here, and there's a bunch of counties around this area that are, connecting to this body of water. And so I'm searching all these counties. Like I put in James City County, which is where Jamestown is located, and we had one hit. I put in all these other counties. I'm plugging in the independent cities, and man, not having pretty much any luck at all. We had a little bit of hits in Isle of Wight County, but that's about it. And nothing to shake a stick at, though, not near as many as up here. And so, I was thinking, okay, another dead end. That's about all there is to it. But then I go a little bit further up on the James River, and I noticed a Charles City County, Virginia. Okay? Now, I didn't already do this search because I wanted you to do it with me so you can see what ended up happening. But you plug in Baker, and you plug in Charles City County, Virginia. Now, and this is another thing, too. If you do this yourself, you might not necessarily plug in the whole name. Just plug in a portion. If you plug in too few or you plug in too much, it might not populate the right one down. But I put in Charles City County, Virginia, and then I hit search. And man, oh man, let me tell you, this thing went off the charts. Now, you'll notice it here in a second whenever it gets done populating, but we had more hits in this county here, Charles City County, Virginia, than we had in all of New York County combined. New York County, by the way, population close to 8.5 million, and we had more hits in this county than we did in all of New York County combined. Now, Charles City County, Virginia, this has a population of about 7,000 people. Like the 2010 census was a little over 7,000 people. The 2020 census, it actually dropped down a little bit, and it had a little under 7,000 people. And you go back and you look at historical populations of it, and it's never had a big population. It's always been less than that. And so we have this county here where the thing just goes off the charts, that has more hits than every other county that I was able to find along the East Coast. And let me tell you what, I searched a lot of counties along the East Coast. And also, as you can tell, this is what I mean. Like, this is a tedious process if you do this yourself. So this took me a little bit to figure out this information. But obviously, it's all worth it if you come across something like this. But you want to keep scrolling down, or it'll stop populating names. So you just got to keep scrolling down with it. And I might have to fast forward this thing because I don't know. I don't want this video to be too long, but okay, I think it stopped. But as you can see, folks, that is Charles City County, Virginia, population 7,000. And look at the bar there. And then you got New York County, New York, population close to 8.5 million. And that's how long the bar is. Tell me that's not cool. So that's whenever I notice this about Charles City County, Virginia, and mind you not, I've never even heard of this place before. Like we don't have any family around there now. Like I never even heard of this place. And when I saw the bar get this short with it, I was like, man, we have to have some roots there. Like it has to go back pretty far. I mean, remember this. Look at back here at Sharp County, Arkansas. Like this is how long the bar was for Sharp County, Arkansas. And we got Baker Cemetery at Sharp County, Arkansas. So where all my grandpas up to my third great grandpa are buried. And that's how far short the bar is. And then you go over to Charles City County, Virginia, I've never even heard of before. And that's how short the bar gets. I was like, my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, this is crazy. And so, of course, I'm like, well, this is a lead to go down to start looking at potential family history. And so I start thinking, well, I'm going to start looking at, do some research on, early bakers in Charles City County, Virginia, see if I can figure out anything with it. And I don't know why this was my first intuition, but I ended up plugging in John Baker, Charles City County, Virginia. If you watched the last video, we've got a lot of John Bakers going down our family tree. My third great grandpa, my fifth great grandpa, my sixth great grandpa are all named John Baker. I'm named John Baker, and probably even, according to that letter, my seventh great grandpa is named John Baker. And so I just thought I'm going to Google John Baker, Charles City County, Virginia, and see if anything pops up. And sure enough, first thing that pops up is John Baker of Shirley 100, which ends up being in Charles City County. And man, whenever I come across this, the guy that did this research, like when I really started delving into it and looking at it, this dude did his homework, let me tell you. So now he primarily did it on this John Baker here that came over in 1623, but man, he's got a lot of great information in his research. And this isn't the only website that he has. He has another one that he did a bunch of really cool research on. I'm going to try to provide links in the description below that talks about this. But nonetheless, though, this right here was a gold mine. And so what this has about him, so he talks a lot about this John Baker that came over in 1623. Now, the actual first baker that came over to America was a William Baker in 1609, but I think this John Baker here ended up having more documents on him. Like this guy ended up becoming a major landowner in the area, and so I think that's the reason that he ended up doing the research primarily on him. But this John Baker here came over in 1623. He was about 19, 20 years old when he came over. He came over as an indentured servant, and then after a while he ended up becoming a captain his own self and selling back and forth between Europe and North America for 5 years as a captain. So it says down here, if you can see the mouse, John Baker to spend 5 years as a captain selling between Europe and the developing colonies in North America. And I thought that was cool too, because my dad was in the Navy and all 4 of his brothers were in the Navy. So this definitely fits the bill. But nonetheless, though, I thought that was cool. He came over as an indentured servant and then became a captain and went back and forth selling. And almost certainly he wasn't just bringing cargo over, but I'm sure some family members jumped on board as well. And maybe that's why we've got so many hits in this area. But nonetheless, though, when you get a document like this, what he also does in this document is he starts naming a lot of names, right? And now you're not going to get hits with every name that he puts in, but the names can kind of, start steering you in a direction, at least give you something you can plug in, especially if there's a bunch of names that a person lists. And that's what he does in this research. you can start plugging in those last names and see if you get hits with it. And that's exactly what we had here. Man, this guy did his research, he did his homework well. Now, you know, if you plug in a real common last name, don't get me wrong, like you put in Harris or a Jones or a Smith or something like that, and you put in Charles City, County, Virginia, you know, it'll go through the roof. Like you can see it already jumped up straight to the top for Harris. It's like you put in the more common last names, and I think there was even more hits for like, well, there was for Smith for sure, and Martin and all those. Like you put in a common last name in here. I'm not going to let this populate down all the way, you know, like I did on the last one, but as you can tell, like it's just, it goes through the roof for some of the more common last names in Charles City County, Virginia, that we've got DNA connections to. But I wanted to look at not just the common names on here, but what about some of these other names? And we were having hits with them as well. Like you got Epps, and it's spelled with an E-P-P-E-S. And that's not a common way to spell that last name, but we had big hits for it. Pierce, Captain William Pierce, was who he was an indentured servant under. We had big hits for Pierce. We had big hits for Dale, which is Thomas Dale, who was the governor of Virginia at that time. So we had big hits for them, but some of those are kind of, you know, common last names. But even these more, you know, uncommon last names, like Thomas Dale was married to an Elizabeth Throckmorton. So Throckmorton. Now, I'd never heard of that last name myself before, but you type in even that and you hit search. And this thing, I'll tell you what, now it takes a little bit for the names to populate, but as you'll notice, after the thing does get done populating, we have some pretty solid hits for even a Throckmorton. What you'll notice whenever it gets done loading here is we actually have more hits for Throckmorton in Charles City County, Virginia, which I'd never even heard of Charles City County, Virginia before, but we have more hits for Throckmorton in Charles City County, Virginia than we do for Baker in Sharp County, Arkansas, where we got Baker Cemetery, and all my great-grandpas up to my third great-grandpa are buried there. But as you can tell, you know, the bar, that's not too bad a hits for a Throckmorton. I'll go back over here as a reminder. This was the bar for Baker in Sharp County, Arkansas. That's some pretty solid hits right there. But overall, it was like really cool things like this that you can do. Is like you can plug in these last names and you can see kind of how that research, plays out. And now you'd think I'd have went the other direction. You'd think I'd went, found this document first, and then, had went over and tried to verify things by plugging in that county and the names in the Ancestry DNA results. And you can by all means go that route, and I'm sure a lot of people will, and you can, verify information, and it's another cool search function for that. But for me, I ended up going the other direction. Like I found there was huge hits in Charles City County, Virginia, and then, I got lucky that someone had already done a lot of research in that area. And that's what happens a lot of times. Like, people have done research for a particular last name in a particular county or area that goes back pretty, or, they go back as far as they can. And so once you see that you have big hits in a county through that, the search results right here, then you can look it up and see if someone has already done research in that area for that last name. And that's what's happened here. And man, let me tell you, I kept doing this. I did this for so many names that he plugged in here. You see here, it says John Rolfe. Rolfe, we had a ton of hits on. Rolfe was actually the husband of Pocahontas, as you can see here. We even get this. Like, I plugged in Pocahontas, and we even had one hit on that last name. Like, what are the odds of that? And then, watch this. You do Powhatan. So Powhatan was the tribe that Pocahontas was from. Now, what are the odds that, and wait till this thing gets downloaded. I mean, there's a relatively decent amount of names that ends up showing up for a Powhatan. I mean, considering we didn't even have this many hits for Baker in Sharp County, Arkansas, where I know we've got deep roots, and we had more hits for Powhatan in that area. I was like, that's pretty interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. This doesn't necessarily mean that I've got Pocahontas's DNA in me. That's not what it's saying. Although that would be really cool. That's not saying that I've got Pocahontas's DNA in me per se. What this is saying is that Pocahontas has some relatives alive today that probably have some Baker DNA in their blood. But still, it's pretty cool, you know? Like, you go back to Baker in Sharp County, Arkansas, and then also get this. So, like, you know, this goes back to my third great grandpa, but as you remember from the last video, that letter, like, my fifth great grandpa was from New York, and then he migrated over to Clermont County, Ohio for a little bit, and then to Indiana for a little bit, and then he settled down in like Scott County, Muscatine County, Iowa, and then it was my third great grandpa that ended up heading down to Sharp County, Arkansas. Okay, but I did this for those other counties too. Like, I did it for Scott County, Iowa, Muscatine County, Iowa. I did it for Clermont County, Ohio. For, I think it was called, I don't know, it was a county that Indianapolis is in, for Indiana, but that's a big county. And we weren't, you know, the bar was still pretty short on all of these, even for them. And that's going back pretty deep in the tree, you know, third, fourth, fifth great grandpa's relatively deep. And still the bars weren't really going that far, you know, having that big of hits. And this is what we're getting for Powhatan in Charles City County, Virginia. And this is what we're getting for Baker. Like, to me, like, this was some very interesting information, right? But then he goes on in this research, like, he gives another lot of really cool stuff, because as you can see up here, you know, he mentions that this is early Bakers in Virginia and Maryland. So he talks about Bakers that, you know, ended up migrating up to Maryland as well. He talks at one point about a John Baker that had was from Maryland, St. Mary's County, Maryland, that ended up becoming a sheriff of St. County's, Maryland, and this was like 1685, 1686, and becoming a really big landowner in that area. So, like, this John Baker here that was in Charles City County that came over in 1623, I think he ended up owning about like 950 acres of land around the Charles City County area, where the John Baker he talks about in this research that was in from St. Mary's County that became sheriff there, he ended up owning like around 3,000 acres of land around the St. Mary's County, Maryland area. So that was interesting. Now, he says at one point in this research that he thinks that John Baker may have been this John Baker's son, but then he says at another point in the research that he thinks that he may have been his nephew, so I'm not sure. But nonetheless, you know, they were related to each other. So sure enough, you know, I look up that as well, and it has, you know, I look up John Baker for St. Mary's County, Maryland, and it has the sheriff that pulls up here. And get this, this was also really cool. So St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office lists their sheriffs, all the ones that they've had back to the year of 1637, right? So, you know, it looks like, you know, we probably landed in Charles City County, migrated up to Maryland at some point, and then New York after that. But nonetheless, though, this website, you know, it comes down, it confirms it. Like, you look here, 1685, 1686, there's a John Baker that was sheriff at that time. There was even one other John Baker, I think, that became a sheriff, as you can see here, in 1727, 1729. But nonetheless, though, like, what this does, it gives more names, right? So I would imagine that this John Baker would have known this Garrett Van Swearingen, and I think he even mentions that name in his research. Also, you'd probably known this Joshua Doyne. So these are all things that you can plug in. Like, you can plug in these last names and see what kind of hits you get. And so that's what I did. And like, you know, I plug in Baker, our surname, St. Mary's County, Maryland, and look at how short the bar got. Like, if you go back here, now that was Massachusetts, you go back here, and this is New York, but this is New York County, New York, population close to 8.5 million. And no, okay. So this is New York County, New York, population close to 8.5 million. And this is St. Mary's County, Maryland, you know, both for the last name Baker. And the bar's almost the same length. I don't remember exactly what the figure was for the population of St. Mary's County, Maryland. I think it was a little over 190,000 people. I'm not sure. It was more than Charles City County, Virginia, but still way less than New York County, New York, and the bar's just as as short. Then this was another huge hit. So I don't remember if I said this at the beginning of the video that there was two counties that we had big hits in that were new information to me as to where research that we can go down. But these were the two counties, Charles City County, Virginia, and St. Mary's County, Maryland. But as you can tell, we had big hits there as well. Even the last name Doyne. So that was also, remember, on that sheriff's list, Doyne, St. Mary's County, Maryland. We had hits with it. And like I said, like you plug in the more common last names, man, they're freaking hits all, we get massive hits with them. But even the more uncommon last names we're getting hits on. And so to me, what it came across as is that this research was very solid research. And so, like I said, I want to put a link in the description of the YouTube video below to this, as well as another website that he has that he's done research on. And again, if I've put this on a website, then I'll try to include it on that as well. But this really gives some solid information on early bakers in Virginia and Maryland. And I would say almost certainly obviously we are related to them. I can't say for certain that this is my direct line, that either of those in either St. Mary's County or this one in Charles City County, these John Bakers were my direct line. But what I would think is that, this John Baker here either had a brother, or I would say probably at a bare bones minimum, a first cousin. That would be my direct line. But nonetheless, though, I'm pretty much certain I'm related to this guy. And I just thought this was cool. Like, this was information I had no idea about, never even heard of Charles City County before. And the next thing you know, you plug in this stuff and you find this information out. And another really cool thing that you can do is, like I said before, you can plug in these last names and other last names and see, what are the odds are that you're related to other people. And like, this is for those of you out here, if you've actually made it this long in the video and you're not related to me, like, this is the reason that I like this DNA, stuff. Like, if you've never done a DNA test before, these are the types of things you can find really cool information. Like, you can, plug in a last name, you can from a famous historical figure, and you can plug in their birth location, and you can see like what the odds are that you are related to that person. And so, if you've never done that before, you've never done a DNA test, please definitely, get yourself one. And if you can, also use the link that I provide. I would be greatly appreciative. But I'll just show you kind of like how it works on that. So I did this for one person. I did it for Daniel Boone. I'm pretty much certain I got some Daniel Boone DNA in my blood. But I did it for Daniel Boone, and I put birth county. And he was born in Berks County, Pennsylvania. And so I searched it. And sure enough, like, you go down here, Boone, Berks County, Pennsylvania, and the bar was pretty short. I thought that was pretty cool. But you can do this for so many other last names. Like, you can do it, for so many other historical figures. And that's what the future videos I make on this is going to be about. I'm going to put in, like, I want to do future videos for my own family, like putting in, famous people like early colonists and founding fathers, put in their last name, and put in the birth location that they were in, and see, what are the odds are that we could be related to them. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean we would have their DNA in us, but like, for example, Daniel Boone here, although I probably do have some Daniel Boone DNA in me, but like, you put Boone here in Berks County, Pennsylvania, it's not guaranteed I've got Boone's DNA in me, but what this does mean is that Daniel Boone's got some relatives that are alive today that almost certainly have some Baker DNA in their blood. But I still think that's pretty cool. So that's kind of some of that cool research you can do, even if you don't get big hits and you find a Charles City County, Virginia, and something, that can help you narrow down where you may have landed, even if you don't get that, this is still really cool information to do, is just looking up famous historical figures and seeing what the odds are that you're related to them. But nonetheless, though, that was the information that I was able to find using my dad's DNA. I thought it was pretty cool. I'd never even heard of Charles City County, Virginia before. And then, you find that out, and then you find a guy that had done research on early bakers in that area, and then his research seems spot on because you plug in those other last names. It just all, to me, I thought it was pretty cool. But that's what I wanted to share with you today. Future videos, like I said, now if you want to, subscribe to the channel, because if I put more videos out in the future that talk about our family history, or do just that, like talk about name a famous figure and see how short the bar gets whenever we plug in their birth location and their last name. Like, if you want to see other videos like that, then please be sure to subscribe, and I'll try to keep you informed and keep you updated as I find out more about our family history. But nonetheless, though, that's the main things I have for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have yourself a good day, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a good one.